They only see the success. They don't see the struggle, the pain it took to get here.
That day, they didn't just humiliate me, they created the man who would destroy their pride. No one spoke, no one helped, no one cared. And the man standing in front of me, the one who slapped me, believed I would never be anything more than a failure. But what he didn't know was this: that moment didn't break me. It built something inside me, something dangerous. Because the same person they laughed at that day would return one day as the man they would all answer to. My name is Ian. I wasn't born into success. I wasn't one of those people who had connections, money, or influence. I came from a small middle-class family where every achievement mattered and every failure hurt deeply. My father ran a small shop. He worked long hours every day just to make sure we had enough to survive. My mother always told me something simple but powerful. Respect is more important than money, but it is much harder to earn. Back then, I didn't fully understand her words. All I wanted was to succeed, to change my life, to make my parents proud. So when I finally got a job in a well-known corporate company, it felt like everything was falling into place. I believed this was my chance, my opportunity to prove myself, my beginning. But I had no idea that this place would become the reason for my biggest downfall and my greatest comeback. At first, everything seemed perfect. The office was modern, the environment looked professional, people dressed sharply, spoke confidently, and acted like they had everything under control. But it didn't take long for me to realize something. This place wasn't about talent, it was about power. If you were confident, people respected you. If you had connections, people listened to you. But if you were quiet, if you were new, if you didn't belong, you became invisible. Or worse, you became a target. And unfortunately, I became that target. My boss, Mr. Kana, was known as a successful man. People respected him, some even feared him. But behind that image, he had a habit. He enjoyed humiliating people, especially those who couldn't fight back. And I was perfect for that. At first, it started small. He would criticize my work in front of others. He would question my abilities. He would make sarcastic comments that made everyone laugh, except me. Are you even qualified for this job? Did you actually think this was good work? Maybe you should go back to where you came from. At first, I ignored it. I told myself it was normal. That this was part of corporate life, that I just needed to work harder, but deep inside, I was slowly breaking. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months, and the insults didn't stop. They increased. Every mistake I made became a reason to insult me. Every idea I shared became a joke. Slowly, people around me stopped taking me seriously. They started seeing me the way he saw me. Weak, useless, replaceable. There were moments when I wanted to quit. But every time I thought about leaving, I thought about my family, their expectations, their sacrifices, and I stayed. Not because I was strong, but because I felt I had no other choice. Then came the day that changed everything. It was an important meeting. Senior management was present. The room was filled with tension. This was my chance to finally prove myself. For days, I had been working on an idea, something I truly believed could help the company grow. I stayed up late. I worked harder than ever before, because deep down I wanted one thing: respect. When my turn came, my hands were slightly shaking, but I gathered my courage and started presenting my idea. For a few seconds, everything was quiet. No interruptions, no criticism, just silence. And for the first time, I felt hope. I thought maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time he would listen. Maybe this time I would finally be seen. But suddenly, a loud laugh broke the silence. Mr. Kana. He stood up slowly, clapping his hands sarcastically. Wow, what an amazing idea, he said. The room filled with awkward smiles. He walked toward me step by step. My heart started beating faster. Something felt wrong, very wrong. He stopped right in front of me, looked me in the eyes, and said, "Do you actually believe you're capable of thinking at this level?" Before I could respond, he slapped me. Hard. The sound echoed across the room. Everything went silent. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't move. I couldn't even think. No one said a word. Some people looked away. Others tried to hide their smiles. And then he said the words that would stay with me forever. People like you are meant to follow orders, not give them. In that moment, something inside me broke completely. But at the same time, something new was born. I didn't react. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just stood there silent. But inside, I made a promise. A promise that no one could hear. A promise that would change everything. One day I will return, and when I do, everything will be different. That day I walked out of the office without saying a single word. No anger. No arguments, no explanation, just silence. When I reached home, I locked myself in my room and stood in front of the mirror. I stared at my reflection, and for the first time in my life, I didn't recognize myself. Not because of the slap, but because of what I had become. Someone who allowed others to treat him like nothing. Someone who stayed quiet even when he was being destroyed. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same moment again and again. The meeting room, the laughter, the humiliation. And that one line, people like you are meant to follow orders. Those words kept repeating in my head until they turned into something else. Fuel, pain turned into anger. Anger turned into determination. And in that moment, I made a decision. I would never go back to that life again. The next morning, I returned to the office, not to work, but to leave. I walked to my desk, packed my belongings, and wrote a short resignation. No explanation, no goodbye. When people saw me leaving, they were confused. Some asked questions. Some whispered behind my back, some even laughed, but none of it mattered anymore. Because for the first time, I wasn't afraid of losing something. I was ready to build something. But walking away was the easy part. What came next was the hardest phase of my life. Days turned into weeks and reality started hitting me hard. My savings began to disappear. Bills started piling up. Friends slowly disappeared. Even relatives started questioning my decisions. Why did you leave such a good job? What will you do now? You made a mistake. Every day felt like a battle. I tried everything: freelancing, small online work, temporary gigs. Some days I earned a little, some days nothing at all. There were nights when I went to sleep hungry, days when I doubted myself. Moments when I thought about going back, apologizing, accepting everything just to survive. But every time I felt weak, I remembered that slap. And suddenly, going back was no longer an option. Instead of quitting, I started learning. I spent hours every day improving myself, watching tutorials, reading books, practicing skills, marketing, business, communication. I failed again and again. But this time, failure didn't break me, it shaped me. Slowly, things began to change. My work improved. I started getting small clients, then bigger ones, then consistent ones. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was building something real. 2 years passed, and I was no longer the same person. The weak, silent boy was gone. In his place was someone stronger. Someone focused, someone unstoppable. I had built a small business that was now growing steadily. People who once ignored me now respected me. My name started to matter. But the biggest change was inside me. I no longer needed validation. I no longer feared failure. And most importantly, I no longer saw myself as weak. Then one day, I heard something unexpected. The same company where I used to work was struggling. Losses were increasing. Management was failing. Reputation was falling. And in that moment, I saw something others didn't: an opportunity. Not for revenge, but for something bigger. I didn't rush. I didn't act emotionally. I acted smart. I started investing quietly, buying shares slowly, strategically. No announcements, no attention. No noise. Step by step, my control increased. Until one day, I became the majority owner. The same company where I was once humiliated now belonged to me. The next day, a meeting was scheduled. Everyone was present, including Mr. Khanna, still confident, still unaware, still the same man. Then I walked into the room and everything changed. People stood up instantly. Respect filled the room, silence followed. He looked at me confused at first, then slowly he recognized me. His face changed: shock, fear, regret, all at once. I walked toward him slowly. Every step carrying the weight of the past. I stopped right in front of him and said quietly, "Should I bring you tea, sir?" The room froze. No one moved, no one spoke. I sat in his chair and looked directly into his eyes. The only difference is, that day you had power. Today I do. Silence. Everyone expected one thing: that I would fire him. That I would humiliate him the same way he humiliated me. But I didn't, because I refused to become like him. I looked at him and said, "You can stay in this company, but not as a boss. As a junior employee, you will learn what respect really means." For the first time, he had no words, only regret. Life taught me something powerful. Revenge is easy. Hurting someone is easy. But becoming so strong that the person who hurt you regrets everything, that is real victory. And that day, I didn't just win. I became someone no one could ever humiliate again.